Welcome back for another deep dive. Today we are going to try to unpack the conflict in Ukraine, but with a twist.
That's twist, okay.
We are asking if Donald Trump could end up stuck in someone else's war.
Uh-oh. All right.
So we've got some breaking news and some pretty in-depth analysis here, maybe even a first-hand account or two.
Wow.
All trying to figure out if Donald Trump is about to be stuck in a war he didn't even start.
Interesting.
So to kick us off, it's worth pointing out that Trump campaigned on ending foreign entanglements.
Right, made it pretty clear.
And now he's inherited this war from the Biden administration.
Yeah, really interesting situation.
And this isn't just some small conflict either.
Definitely not.
We are talking about a war that's already in its third year.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize it had been that long.
With no end in sight.
Yeah, you really have to wonder what's next.
And one of our sources goes into detail about a Russian missile strike
Oh, no.
in Izium hitting an apartment block and administrative building.
Oh, gee.
5 people were killed. At least 30 were injured. And they're still looking for survivors under the rubble.
I can't even imagine.
This is a pretty stark reminder that this war has very real human costs.
It certainly does. It certainly does.
And this event really highlights the tough choices that Trump's going to have to make going forward.
I would think so, yeah.
There is a lot of pressure from different groups domestically about how much support we should be giving Ukraine.
For sure. I've heard a lot of people talking about this.
And there are even European leaders urging for more self-reliance.
Which basically means...
Basically telling the U.S. to take a step back.
Wow, okay.
So with this already complicated situation, Trump has added another curveball.
Oh no, what did he do now?
He is demanding that Ukraine pay for U.S. aid with rare earth minerals.
Wow.
Which, for some listening, that might be new territory.
Yeah, what are those?
So we're talking about 17 metals
Okay.
that are extremely important to all sorts of high-tech products like electric vehicles and cell phones, you name it.
Gotcha. And the key here is that these minerals are not only super important for modern technology, but they're incredibly hard to come by.
Exactly.
China is dominating that market right now.
They pretty much have a monopoly on it.
And it looks like Trump sees this as a way to change that.
To give the U.S. more control.
Yeah, I see.
But it feels a bit like we're holding them hostage.
How so?
Well, we are asking a country that's fighting for its survival
Right.
to pay for its defense
Yeah.
with highly sought-after resources.
That's a tough one. Definitely raises some questions about what kind of power the U.S. has here, you know?
Yeah.
Is this just smart negotiating, a way to snag these resources for American interests? Or is it taking advantage of Ukraine while they need us?
It really makes you wonder if this could be Trump's Vietnam.
Is Vietnam?
You know, the war started by a former president, but that ends up becoming the responsibility and maybe even the downfall of the one who takes over.
Oh, interesting parallel. Yeah, the Vietnam War went on forever.
It did.
With tons of casualties and no real winner.
Right.
People got fed up, and it was Lyndon B. Johnson, the guy who inherited the war, who got blamed, even though he didn't start it.
Exactly. So are we saying that despite Trump wanting to pull back from international conflicts,
Right.
he could end up deeper in this war than ever before?
Potentially, yeah.
All because he's so focused on these rare earth metals.
Well, if he keeps sending Ukraine weapons and money,
Right.
but at the same time demands they pay him back with these resources,
Yeah.
it does seem like he's making it his war, even though he had nothing to do with starting it.
And that could lead to some serious backlash like what Johnson saw during Vietnam.
Oh, for sure.
If this war drags on, more casualties, public opinion turns against us, Trump could be the one everyone blames.
The one who couldn't get us out of this mess.
Exactly.
And there's the bigger picture too, right?
Right, the global impact.
Yeah, this conflict's already making things tense between the U.S. and the EU.
Yeah, and Trump's trade policies aren't helping.
Not at all.
And then you've got worries about Russia getting even more aggressive.
Like with Moldova.
Exactly. This is a very tricky situation for Trump to handle.
For sure, for sure. And we have to remember, this is all happening while the world's kind of going crazy, right?
In what way?
Well, you see nationalism coming back in a big way. Countries don't trust each other like they used to, and it feels like nobody's playing by the old rules anymore.
Almost like we're about to see a totally new world order, huh?
Exactly, where the balance of power is shifting and those old alliances, well, they're being put to the test.
And that's why this whole thing in Ukraine is so important.
I think so, yeah.
It's like a mini version of all those global tensions.
Like a pressure cooker.
Where the big players are all trying to get what they want.
Yeah, and in the middle of it all is Ukraine just trying to survive.
Right, trying to stay afloat in these crazy geopolitical currents.
Zelensky's in a tough spot, man.
He is.
I mean, if he gives in to Trump and hands over those rare earth minerals, he's going to look weak.
Like he's selling out his country.
Exactly, but if he tells Trump to get lost,
He risks losing our support.
leaving Ukraine wide open for Russia to walk all over them.
It's a no-win situation.
It really is.
And all of this really highlights how much this war has hurt Ukraine.
Oh, absolutely.
One of our sources talked about this 18-year-old British volunteer, James Wilton,
What happened?
killed on his first mission in Ukraine.
Jeez, that's awful.
His father talked about how much James just wanted to help, to make a difference.
It just breaks your heart.
It shows you how this isn't some game, some political chess match.
Right.
It's a real war.
Yeah, real people are dying.
Families are being ripped apart.
Yeah.
And a whole nation is dealing with the trauma of being invaded and occupied.
And even if the fighting stopped tomorrow, the damage is done.
The scars are going to last forever.
Exactly. Think about all the buildings that have been destroyed, the civilian casualties.
And the millions who have lost their homes.
Not to mention all the Ukrainian kids that were taken to Russia.
It's a humanitarian crisis unlike anything we've seen in a while.
It makes you wonder what the long-term consequences are going to be, even for those who make it out alive.
And that's what makes this whole rare earth minerals thing so worrying.
In what way?
It could really hurt Ukraine's ability to get back on its feet.
Yeah, to rebuild, to chart its own course.
It's like instead of helping them,
Yeah.
we're trying to take advantage while they're down.
I can see why people would feel that way.
A lot of the personal accounts we've seen express this sense of disappointment.
Like, they can't believe the countries that promised to have their back are now doing this to them.
It's a far cry from when the war first started and everyone was rallying around Ukraine.
Yeah, the mood has definitely changed.
And Trump needs to be careful.
I think so.
If he keeps pushing for those minerals, he's going to alienate Ukraine and our European allies.
Yeah, they're already suspicious of him as it is.
It's like he's walking a tightrope, trying to get what he wants politically, but also dealing with a war he didn't start and might not fully understand.
It all comes back to that question, doesn't it? Could this become Trump's Vietnam?
Yeah, could this demand for rare earth minerals be what drags him into this mess and maybe even brings him down?
Especially if public opinion turns and people don't want us involved anymore.
And if more people die and the war just keeps going without any end in sight.
This is a situation that deserves our attention. It's not just some far-off conflict that doesn't affect us.
That's great.
This could change everything, how countries relate to each other, the relationship between the U.S. and its allies.
Yeah, and the lives of millions are at stake. So we're talking about a war that is changing everything, how countries work together, what the U.S. is doing in the world.
And you've got Donald Trump right in the middle of it, wanting to do things his own way, even if it means ignoring what everyone else is saying and maybe making the same mistakes as other presidents.
We've been comparing this to Vietnam, but there's another historical event that comes to mind, the scramble for Africa.
Oh, yeah, back in the 1800s.
When European countries were dividing up Africa and taking all its resources for themselves.
Not really caring about the people who live there?
Exactly, and that makes me think about this whole rare earth minerals thing. Is the U.S. under Trump just doing the same thing, using its power to take what it wants from a weaker country?
It's a good question, and it definitely makes you think about why the U.S. is really involved in this war.
Is it really to help a democracy fight off a dictator? Or is it just to get those resources for ourselves?
And how can we justify that when you think about all the people who have died, the families that have been torn apart, all the people who have lost their homes?
Are they just pawns in some bigger game? It feels like we're at a turning point, not just for the U.S., but for the whole world.
The decisions we make now will have huge consequences.
We need to ask ourselves some hard questions.
Like what?
What's the real reason the U.S. is involved in this war? Is it right to demand those resources from a country that's already struggling? What will happen to Ukraine and the U.S. if we keep going down this path?
Big questions, no easy answers.
But we have to ask them, because what's happening in Ukraine is important for them, for our allies, for everyone.
The whole world is kind of in a state of change right now.
So if this is Trump's Vietnam, if he's making the same mistakes as before, can he do anything to change things? Can he get the U.S. out of this war without leaving Ukraine to fend for themselves? Can he do all that and still stick to those values of democracy and human rights that America is supposed to stand for?
Those are the challenges he's facing.
We'll have to see how he handles it and what happens in the end.
Yeah, one thing's for sure, the whole world's watching, and whatever he decides will have a huge impact for years to come.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the conflict in Ukraine. We hope you keep thinking about it, questioning what you think you know, and stay involved in the conversation, because what happens in Ukraine could affect all of us, maybe even the future of the world.
It's a big deal.